To just give everybody an outline, we're going to call the meeting to order. But we have two meetings. First, we have a budget meeting from 7 to 7:30, and then we'll continue with our regular commission meeting from 7:30 on. Public comments will be allowed if there's no objection from the commission during the first part of the meeting. So those folks who don't want to stay the whole length, they do not have to. Just to give everybody a heads up. All right, call to order, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Truppman.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tudor.
Here.
Commissioner Beard.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson Sadell.
Here.
Commissioner Ross.
Here.
Good evening. I would like all of us to take a moment to recall the events of September 11, 2001, 17 years ago, when a series of terrorist attacks killed 2,977 people in New York City, Washington, D.C., and outside of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. On this day, it is important that we remember those individuals who tragically died and the impact their unfathomable deaths continue to have on their families. Furthermore, we show our respect and honor for the many brave men and women, including the first responders and many others, who have either died since or continue to live with the illnesses born from these attacks. Please remain standing to observe a moment of silence after we say the Pledge of Allegiance in their honor. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Are there any additions, withdrawals, or deletions to the first part of this agenda? For the first agenda? None? There's no presentations. There is public comments related to the agenda items. Once again, the first part is the first budget hearing for 2018-19 hearing. You are welcome to take comments on those, on this particular meeting or on the next one that's coming up. Public comments, open. And please, if you could just be respectful for the decorum. Thank you so much. Any public comments? None? Okay. Attorney Herron? We're going on to 9, ordinance 9A.
Item 9A, ordinance number 2018-05, first reading, an ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, establishing the 2018-2019 millage rate at 9.7 mils for each $1,000 of assessed valuation upon real and personal property within the village limits of Biscayne Park and providing for an effective date. Let me make a very quick comment that that is, I'm going to read from section 1 of the proposed ordinance in order to make sure that we comply with state law. That the operating millage rate for the Village of Biscayne Park is proposed to be set at 9.7 mils per each 1,000 assessed value, as certified in the Miami-Dade County Property Appraiser, as shown on the real and personal property assessment rolls for the 28 calendar year, and which is 10.41% greater than the rolled back rate of 8.6898 mils.
Thank you. Are there any discussion items for either the manager or the commissioners on this? Commissioner Ross?
As far as this ordinance?
This ordinance.
Just setting the millage rate, I make a motion to approve it.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All those in, oh, actually, we have to take a roll call. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Truppman.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tudor.
Yes.
Commissioner Beard.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson Sadell.
Yes.
Commissioner Ross.
Yes.
Okay, Village Attorney, 9B.
Item 9B, ordinance 2018-06, first reading, an ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, adopting a budget for fiscal year 2018-2019 for the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Is there an open for discussion on the budget? Anybody like to start? Manager Manners, or, I'm sorry, Mr. Winklejohn? I know we made some changes. If you could comment on the changes that we've made for the public, the updates that were made last time, and then if there's any changes from the commission, we'll address those then.
The changes you mean from our last workshop?
Yeah.
Well, generally, most of the operational changes reflect some personnel shifting in Public Works, some construction ideas that have been incorporated into the road funds. From a big picture standpoint, the overall impact on your budget is a balanced budget with a revenue, probably excess revenue presently slated in the $40,000 to $50,000 range. Your long-term operation of the budget, like we had talked about, would be contingent on a few items, one of which would be your hurricane refunding. You know, so those new items in the budget, you would want to trigger those after you get your funding. The operational requirements of the city would be obviously well funded and properly funded without any service level reductions.
Okay, so just to be clear, your recommendation is to basically, if I'm not mistaken, freeze all discretionary funding and positions until such time that our second quarter or until FEMA reimburses us?
Yes, you're adopting a budget based on essentially 98% of your revenue. And because of that, when you add new items to the budget, which is certainly an excellent exercise and an important goal setting and priority setting exercise, which you've conducted, when you do that, you still have to be fiscally responsible with the reality of your reserves and the reality of the outstanding revenue due to you from FEMA. When you don't have that revenue, your resiliency financially is obviously not the same. So my advice is that the budget's excellent. I found the exercise, like I said, to be very healthy, and it was a well-vetted process. But the discretionary items, hiring freezes, things like that, would be well within a respectable plan. As soon as the money comes from FEMA, then your plan will be easy to execute.
Thank you. Manager Manners, do you have anything else to add?
Not at this time. We do have a few changes to the budget that we're going to have. Commissioner Ross and I met on Friday, and she had some questions as well. I believe Paul's been brought up to speed on those, so he can answer those tonight for you. And so we can just...
Yeah, I don't have a specific list of those, so if you want to remind me of them.
Okay.
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
Commissioner Ross, go ahead.
First, with the recommendation to sort of freeze everything in place until...
Discretionary new items, non-contractual services, non-essential, yes.
I heard you.
Okay. Sorry, I wasn't as elaborate that time.
So I think it's important that we make a distinction between acquisitions and purchase items and salaries, and in particular, the position of the Public Works Director Manager, because that's a position that is sorely needed, and we're actually making life harder for ourselves by not having that position filled. So I'm sure it's going to take some time to find the right person. I would much prefer that moving forward, and understandably holding off on other purchases, like the vehicle purchases, until the FEMA money comes in. But when you look at our bank accounts, our bank balances are quite healthy.
They're solid, yes, ma'am. And
So-
the piece I didn't put into my sentence was your revenue comes in December, January. So that would be a very healthy approach. Would be when you throw new things into the budget, you don't have that revenue in there yet. And so
Right.
you have the advice I'm giving you, plus the FEMA money, which is certainly the larger share, is your first quarter operating. October, November, and December, you have zero ad valorem revenue until then. So you wouldn't incur the costs if you can avoid it prematurely. So you wait, if possible, because otherwise and later tonight we can talk about how you have to use reserves for that already. And a good way to overcome that constant, annual dip is to reduce unnecessary new expenses, new plans, projects, and you just push them back a few months.
So the way I understand the cash flow analysis that I received
Yes, ma'am.
this afternoon, and the bank statements that we got earlier in this week, I believe
Yep.
it was, we can very easily absorb that gap in the ad valorem spend.
From a cash standpoint, absolutely, yes, ma'am.
I mean, probably 3 times that if we had to.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Okay, just to understand our jumping off point.
Yes, I appreciate the being specific about that. It's good.
So the last budget draft that we received showed a excess revenues over expenditures of 47,861.
Correct.
That's encouraging, aside from the 50,000 that we actually put a line item in as
Contingencies, yeah, that,
But there were
not everybody finishes their budget that way. Most people go past it and then have to cut way down to get to an even number, so credit to you all.
So there were a couple of things in the budget that we discussed at the workshops that weren't captured, and there's at least one item that sort of came to light after
Okay.
that occurred. And the first one that we're going to encounter in the order would be in section 3 for the commission budget. I had asked and received the backup to support line 55, which is education and training, that shows 1,510 year to date. And when I got that backup, among the expenses that are coded to line 55 are Miami-Dade League of Cities annual dues of $1,000.
Okay, that probably should have been subscription and memberships.
Right.
Would make sense, okay.
Right, but over on the subscription and membership side, we apparently expended pretty much what we had budgeted. We expended $825.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
And so this budget is gonna be shy the $1,000 annual membership fee unless we make an adjustment.
Okay. Got it.
That's fine. You just move, you're going to move the item, instead of adding money, you're going to move it from one to the other?
At that level, I would ask the discretion of the commission to allow the staff to just make that correction.
Is that
It
consensus?
would not be a material correction somewhere, somehow, some way. That would be my
Consensus?
approach.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and if we could, between now and second reading, when we get the update, could we have it sort of redlined so that we can see?
That's a great idea.
I've gone through like 8 or 9 versions of this budget.
Me
and
too,
I
I
don't
lost
know-
track of some of my changes too, so I appreciate that thought, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
What, next, Commissioner Ross?
The next item is, the next item I noted was in the administration budget, line 31, professional services.
Yep.
We have debt refinance, the legal fees for the debt refinance at $6,000. And when I met with the manager Friday,
It's a little
Mr.
higher.
Manners
yeah.
advised me it's gonna be about $7,500.
Okay.
So that's an additional 15 that
Yep.
we should include in the budget.
And we just received the closing statement today, I believe.
Attorney Herron?
Attorney Herron?
Yes, we did receive a draft closing statement from the bank, and they have, according to their estimation, they have the lender's legal fees, which are set at $7,500, and they estimate our review fees at about $2,500. I don't anticipate it actually being that high. But until they actually produce the documents, it's kind of hard to give you a better figure. But if I do some quick math here.
And while you're doing the math, do you find their fees reasonable within
They're
normal parameters?
$7,500?
Mhm.
Yeah, and really, there's not much room. They've made it clear to the village that that fee, their cost is a discounted rate, and they won't be going any lower than that. That's the minimum that they're going to, both the minimum and the maximum they're charging their client.
Thank you. Commissioner Ross, while he's looking, do you want to tell us where we're going?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that when we get that final number, we're going to have to do an adjustment there also.
So do we have a consensus of the commission to make that adjustment
So
and have staff make it?
Got it.
I was thinking this, I was taking this line to mean debt refinance legal fees that we're paying out to the bank, not necessarily our side of the fees. I thought that
This
was-
line item is strictly the bank side.
Right.
The villages would come out of the normal budget line.
the regular legal budget.
Right,
Off the
so,
top of my head, I don't know if we're tracking ahead to absorb that, so I'll look at that.
So then we could say it's going to be $7,500.
Yes.
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
All right, we have a consensus, no problem having them to adjust that? Okay, next, Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
Yes.
Under line 40, in the same department, we show potential vehicle lease of $6,000. That line is for travel and per diem. So I think that that doesn't belong there. Doesn't have an impact on the bottom line.
Rentals and leases, perhaps? We have a better place for it?
Yes.
Yeah. And then on that same line, we also have the manager's auto allowance as travel and per diem. But my understanding is that.
I'm sorry, hold on. I'm sorry, could you mind? Thank you so much.
My understanding is that there are payroll taxes that are applicable to that auto
To
allowance.
vehicle revenue, right.
Unless there's some kind of a log kept or.
The IRS standard, correct.
So we're not capturing that payroll tax. By putting it in this category, we're not capturing that payroll tax that's going to be due.
Okay, we'll look at that.
That's not going to be a lot, minimal amount.
I know the guy that drives the car, so we can come up with a way.
In the building department, we've talked about this, and I still have an issue with it, in that we're showing revenue in the building department for permits of $104,500, and 65% of that is paid out to
Is
our
an expense,
contract person.
right.
So we have to show an expense of at least $65,000 to match that revenue.
I follow you, yeah, I remember.
But we're only showing 42,000. And so I understand, you know, it's a sliding scale because they balance each other. But if we're understating what the expense is going to be based on the revenue of 104, then we're cutting, you know, we're making the budget too short. And because it's over $20,000, I think it's significant.
Okay. Right now, the math is off, but the actual calculations are balancing per the paperwork, you know, the costs out and revenue in. I don't have enough experience with the way this flows to give you an exact answer, yes or no, but I would like to research it even further and make that report back to the board how the money is flowing in and out. But the accounting math is, she was very confident that this number was reflecting. But it doesn't make sense, like you're saying. It's supposed to be, it's a contractual 65%. Why isn't it adding up? I haven't researched every transaction.
And there's also a separate
Yeah.
revenue line for the inspections. We're claiming the revenue for the inspection.
Right.
But we're not showing a payment.
Yeah, so
out.
the way they're coded in and out, we think they're still adding up, but we don't know for sure. So, you know, that it's put in the right place exactly the right way.
One of the email, I got an email back from Sharon,
Mhm.
where she agrees with me that the budgeted expense should be 65%, and it probably should be increased to 67,925.
Okay, so she's already answered it. That's great.
But we're not.
We need
but
to.
We haven't changed
okay.
it in the budget. So when I first talked about that 47,000 that we're showing excess
Mm-hmm.
revenue, well, now we're cutting 20 22,000.
I follow you. Yeah, so basically it's an information flow that didn't make it into the draft. So we'll get that corrected.
Okay.
And
I
it-
mean, and that's
I get it now,
really administratively, you guys do the math and make sure that it's,
That was how I reacted to it. Is, are we getting all our revenue? Not, is the right revenue or expense reflected? I misinterpreted it, but I get it now.
okay.
Okay, we all agree there's no problem with that? Make a correction? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Public Works. In the Public Works Department, first of all, we're only showing a 3% increase in salaries.
Okay, may I interject something candidly? This is, we are going to be in negotiation contracts. We have a contingency fund of $50,000. I don't think now is the time. I know we're going to be looking at budget, but we have a 50,000 contingency would more than cover any type of raises we do there or not raises. I don't think this is appropriate to do in the form since it's something we do in the shade. I just think we need to be careful on that.
We have a $50,000 contingency in administration, and is it the commission's intent for that to slide across whatever department needs it?
I would think in this case, if there is a need for it, we can do adjustments as they come by. I just want to be careful, and the attorney can help us out on this. I don't think we should be discussing negotiations about the PB contract.
Yeah, I think that's the concern, is that, you know, the budget process, as we all know, as we go through it year after year, is part art, part science. And so you're using your, you know, in some instances, estimations. But ultimately, the number that will get plugged in is whatever gets negotiated pursuant to the contract negotiations. So the number that's provided here in the budget is a guesstimate, an educated guesstimate, and you know, it may not change, but that there are funds to cover that, depending on if the number does in fact go up or the percentage goes up.
Okay.
So are there two?
Yeah, there are other issues though.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, between Thursday night and Friday, when I met with the manager, this page with the salaries was corrected to show 70 for the manager and 128 for the 4 laborers. But when you look at the burdens, those are still at the incorrect number that was distributed Thursday night.
Okay.
And could you change the name from manager to Public Works Director, because that would be correct, so there's no confusion on that page?
So you're saying the burden's on the correction?
Right.
Okay, got it. For the man.
So that's,
Anything else?
FICA on line 21, the FRS on line 22.
Okay, I think that should be fairly nominal adjustment, but good catch.
When I did the base FICA point 0765, I got 15,178, and we're only showing 10,000.
Okay, I have the schedule. I'll check it.
Okay.
Where that number came.
In the FRS, it's pretty significant because the manager gets a higher rate of contribution of 25, almost 24 and a half, something like that, a little bit over 24%. So that number is going to go to like 18.
Okay. I'm going to, actually, if I may, ask a question. I don't think we agreed in this commission to not only give a $7,000 salary, but put a manager's salary. We've never done that. The only person who got that salary was the manager. So I'm not sure that FRS has to go up at that percentage rate. You're making an executive management decision. I don't think we as a commission agreed to that.
Yeah, I don't know how the category will fall. I mean, your manager obviously has that rate, but your other department heads do not. So I would have used math from another department head, which are not in that number, with the exception of police department.
You know, typically, that would be the 8.26% that.
We have $50,000 contingency to apply it as you need to, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's going to get right one way or the other. Yeah.
Regardless, even if it's at the 8.26, it's going to be another $8,000 or so. Under the health insurance, which is line 23, you're only showing health insurance for 4 employees, and we're gonna have 5 in the department. That's another $8,000 or so.
Health insurance. Yeah, I'll double check that schedule. I thought we made that correction personally, but.
Well, I mean, just looking at all the other departments, it runs about 8,000 per employee, and 32 is only 40.
Right, we've made another adjustment as well, taking into assumption that all employees would have a percentage of health insurance, whereas we have several that do not opt for it. So there's a little bit more flexibility in that, but I'll double check our schedule and make sure that that our calculation's at least going to cover the village-wide, which is what we're trying to do. But that's a good catch. I got it.
Okay. Workers' comp also goes with the other tax burdens.
Right.
On the issue of repairs and maintenance, still in Public Works, which is line 46.
Yep.
So we showed 51,000 as expended through May 31st. And within that 51,000, there are a bunch of monthly or quarterly expenses like the ADP, the Empire Fire, Ehrlich, and there are a bunch of these contract vendors that are included in that line item. But what we budgeted for in the proposed budget is really
Didn't have those probably. Yeah,
landscaping
good.
and all of this other stuff. So I don't know where we're going to pull the money from to pay for the things that we paid last year if we're not providing for it here.
Right. From a budget standpoint, we're projecting it as it's projected. So that's been basically already absorbed in essence. You follow me? Like in technical process, you could adjust your budget to reflect that back down, or up. But either way, you're building off of last year's revenue net. So that would still be the correct number. You follow?
But in the proposed budget, which is 104 now, we're specifically saying entrance sign installation 11,000,
Yeah.
bridge landscaping. We're specifically earmarking these.
I got it.
$104.
That's excellent detail. We'll scrub it and try to get it ready for you for next reading. See,
And
I don't know with that level of detail, but good. We'll do it. Public Works Director's here. I thought I saw him walking around, or your lead Public Works person. So we'll get him to
Mr.
we'll
Hernandez?
identify every penny. So make sure it's right.
He'll work with you on that?
I didn't see anywhere in the budget, we talked about setting aside $12,000 for a village hall generator, and I couldn't find it anywhere in the budget.
I don't remember it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we did.
It's not. And we had been going forward with a grant on that, but we did talk about that, and we do need to include that in the budget.
Yeah, okay. Glad to. I didn't have that note. I must have missed it. But
So I would have put that.
does that go under Public Works?
Under Public Works, line 64, machinery and equipment. I don't know, that just seems to be the logical place, but I leave it to you. And I guess, should we ask the commission, we still do want to set aside $12,000 for.
We all agree to that.
generator.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Yes?
Yes.
Anything else?
I think I'm nearing the end. I have a couple of more pink little slides, which are, moving into the special revenue funds, road fund. On line 12, we're showing no increase whatsoever for the salaries for those 2 employees.
That's what we just discussed.
So
We
if
just,
we did 3% on the other side, we should at least do the 3% on this side.
what I'm saying is, and the attorney can jump in here, I don't think, if we have contingency money, we can put it in there. If you want to put a buffer to make it possible to have raises, I don't have a problem with that, but I don't think that should be something we discuss other than to have it as a contingency or put it in a format.
I
Without going into the detail of it,
I would adjust it from a consistency standpoint, if that's acceptable.
Yeah, I would suggest that you plug in an estimated number, so it's showing in the budget.
Okay.
It can always be adjusted later depending upon what the outcome of the
Okay.
negotiations are.
Okay.
Yeah, if I recall, what was happening in that line item was it had been falsely adjusted too high prior year, and so the 3% is actually in that number already. That's why it doesn't show an increase. And you can
So
see the
when we
projection
adopted
is
last year-
a couple $1,000s off. That seems to make sense to me. So I'll double check that, but I think that's why. There were a couple departments, or a couple positions, I should say, where they had overcalculated their cost. And so when you plug in the 3%, it wasn't necessary.
And then all the burdens travel with whatever.
They go right with it. Yeah, the schedule that I sent around, that ties directly into these line items. So if you make an adjustment on that, it flows into this budget
Thank you.
with about a 98% accuracy, because I found one error already, so,
Okay.
but not too bad.
Okay. So, then moving on to the CITT,
Yep.
page 5 of 5 is still showing, some amount to be expended for transit projects, which I don't know that we did set anything aside. We probably should, but I don't think that we did.
Yeah, the edit I gave her was, you remember there was an error on that sheet where she duplicated the roads, so she took those out, but I didn't give her any direction on what to do with that line item, so I left it.
There's still a, yeah,
The
15,681.
15,681, so
that
I'm
line item,
open
so.
to direction.
Well, earlier in the week, or maybe it was late last week, I sent the CITT guidelines.
Yes,
to
I
the
saw that. I
manager.
think they circulated, yes.
I don't know that they were circulated, I didn't actually see it get circulated back, but,
Does everybody have copies of the CITT, knows what's
Yes.
available? Yes.
okay, great. So, at the last page of that guideline, it shows, a schedule of municipal reports that need to be done. And very soon, we need to provide them with a report on how we're gonna spend the money,
Okay.
how we intend to spend the money. So, it doesn't have to be today discussed, but we do need to have that discussion so that we're able to provide something on the deadline, which is, coming up, November 1st.
Okay.
And
We're in the middle of audit,
by
too,
the
right?
way, in the report, in the guidelines, it asks the question, what happens if reports are not submitted? No, that's not the question.
If we can focus on the budget, we can come back to this during the managers.
Well,
Quick
just
for
to
me.
stress the point that we haven't expended any of that transit money, and if we don't spend it, it's gonna revert back to the county. So we have to have a serious conversation about it, because I'm not willing to give any money back to the county that we can use here.
Agreed. I don't think you're going to have a disagreement on the,
An agenda item for the next month or so, yeah.
okay.
I think that's it. That's all my notes.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners?
No, I think that was thorough.
No.
Okay, I do have a couple of comments generally, and that is based upon the $47,000, based upon what corrections that Commissioner Ross has proposed, and we've all agreed to. I think we basically down to spent almost the entire budget, minus just a little bit. I have grave concerns that we are overextending ourselves, and we need to phase in some of these things that we're planning on doing over 2 years instead of over one. I think it's irresponsible for us fiscally to continue with a budget that's so tight when we have $402,000 in the reserves. As you all can see, there are several hurricanes currently headed for the East Coast. We have to be realistic about the possibility of having that again without having any FEMA money. So if we have another storm, we have to, or any other, for that matter, any other legal issues or anything else we have to deal with, I think we have to be ready to do that. So I'm going to highly recommend once again that if we pass this budget as it currently is, and I honestly think we should have done some cuts. I'm not happy that we have not. I understand that it's tight. I understand there's a lot of work that needs to get done in the village, but I think we also have to be a little prudent fiscally. So I am deeply concerned that we've overspent this budget and that we need to make some cuts. Since I was outvoted last time, is there anybody who's willing to make some cuts? Nope, okay, stand alone. Thank you.
At some point in time,
Oh, I did.
He did.
We did.
We opened
I-
up the bird.
Not for the ordinance.
Okay.
Not for
I
the-
thought I had opened it up by opening up to both the ordinance ahead of time, and I asked.
In
But I'm
abundance of
happy to
caution-
do that, yeah.
In abundance of caution, I would open up the public comment for the ordinance for the adoption, and
No
it
problem.
never hurts to be over.
Absolutely.
inclusive.
Okay, any public comments regarding item 9B? Or for that matter, 9A? Please state your name and address. Thank you.
Dan Keys, 1107 118th Street. Generally, I want to say that I very much support the budget. I'm very happy with some of the things that are in there, particularly the Public Works Director position. Taking into consideration what the mayor says and Commissioner Ross has said regarding that particular position and holding off on it or not holding off on it. Happen to agree that we should try to move forward on it as quickly as possible because it will pay us in the end. I am cognizant of your commentary. I will point out that this budget is from October 1 forward, okay? So we have 2 months of a hurricane season potentially that we'd have to get through. And I sure hope that the FEMA money is going to come in within that period of time. Who knows, though? And the problem that exists that causes us to hold off for 3 months to expend, and then at the end of a fiscal year, hold off because we're not sure what's going on for the next fiscal year. You end up with a very shortened year. I had to go through this any number of times in my career, and it's very frustrating. So one of the ways to deal with that is to increase your reserves and make sure you have that there. Having said that, I still think you ought to go through with it the way it's set up right now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chuck Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard. I'm going to reiterate a little bit about what Dan just said. I think that you adopt the budget as it is. We make a determination about what the amount of the FEMA money we're going to collect is, and then we can start to implement some of the proposals in this budget. So I wouldn't change it. I think that pretty much covers what I was going to say. I wanted to thank you again for having the discussion first, so I like it this way better. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Janie Anderson, 11th Place and 119th Street. The last thing we should consider doing is postponing the hiring of a public works manager. We've paid the price for short-sighted managers and commissioners for too many years now. We've got enough issues going on in code, which I won't bore you with tonight. It's already in my email you should have received yesterday. We don't need to add to that. This is a position that is ultimately going to pay for itself in terms of strategic planning and improvements and oversight that we have lacked. That is definitely not the place to postpone.
Thank you, Janie.
Bob Anderson, 11th Place, 119th Street. On the road fund, it appears like we're overspending by $1,351 for the revenue coming in to the expenditures. So if that's true, it's not balanced.
Good evening. Oh, one second. Okay. Barbara Watts, 720 Northeast 118th Street. I want to reiterate some of the things that have been said this evening regarding the budget. I was distressed to see that the reserves have gone down, or the contingency fund from what was $291,000 last year to $47,000 and $47,898 this year.
Could you speak up a little bit if you don't mind? Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm just concerned about the contingency funds. And again, as was said before, The fact that we are facing hurricane season and we've been lucky that Florence did not hit us is not coming our way. But who knows what's going to happen in the next month or so. And we'll need a good deal of money to pay those who take away our debris. And we shouldn't have to take out another loan. I think that discretionary funding or discretionary items and projects should be delayed until we get the FEMA reimbursement. And from what I've read and what I've heard from commissioners in other municipalities, this has nothing to do with Biscayne Park. It's the new system of the state working in conjunction with FEMA that's caused much of the delay. But nonetheless, because we don't know when we'll get the FEMA money, I think we should delay spending spending on certain projects until such time, and you should make an agreement not to spend on the niceties until we do get reimbursed by FEMA. I think that's it. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
Fred Jonas, 918 119th Street. Tracy, fiscally irresponsible is a very harsh term, and when you, in a sense, challenge your colleagues about it, then it's almost like an indictment. And I think if you really feel that strongly about it, you had a lot of opportunities not to arrive where you are today. You did not have to set the millage at 9.7 if you think this is fiscally irresponsible. If you think cuts needed to be made, you've had many opportunities not only to make cuts, but to establish a kind of a plan and a vision for the village that would indicate where some contraction could have occurred. But if you haven't done that, and if you've gotten this far where you are, then tonight is the time just to pass the budget.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Okay. Attorney, go ahead and take a vote. We'll take a vote, yes? By roll call?
Close the public hearing.
Close public
and
comment,
vote,
yep, just want to make sure.
roll call
Close the
vote.
public hearing, roll call.
Are you going to pass this ordinance?
You have to roll call.
We need a motion.
I don't think there's been a
I-
motion at
I-
all.
I'm
I
sorry.
thought
Yes.
I thought one was made,
I
but
thought one was my too. Okay, is there a motion to pass ordinance 9B,
2018 or
2018-06.
2018-06.
2018-06?
I'd like to make one comment, though, before we do that. You know, I do have concerns over the spending in the budget, though I also do have concerns about us moving forward. I agree with the comments that we do need this public works manager, but I do want to be careful with what we're going to get back with FEMA. I don't know. I would agree with postponing some of the discretionary items except the public works manager, because I believe that's what we need. I believe that's what we need, but I think we should think about postponing some other items while we're waiting for FEMA, because with all the discussion just now tonight, certain items that Commissioner Ross has brought up that aren't truly correctly reflected in the budget has given me pause.
If I'm not mistaken, I want the attorney to confirm, and then Commissioner Belt, can you confirm that if we pass this budget, we can then, after the budget is passed, to have a budget to move forward, that we can then direct the city manager to hold off on all discretionary funding till FEMA money comes in, or make some, whatever the commission as a consensus believes. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, that is. What you're doing here tonight is first, you're adopting the budget on first reading. So, you know, the budget isn't formally adopted until it's approved on second reading. What I would respectfully suggest is that prior to or between now and second reading, that you all individually think about what it is, the priorities that you may want to direct the manager to implement that are discretionary in nature, including the hiring of the the Public Works Director, a new Public Works Director. And then after the budget is adopted on second reading on the 25th, is then make motion and have that discussion as to the priorities, or it could be the next meeting after that. But if you want to give, after you have adopted the new budget on second reading, it would then be appropriate by motion and discussion to then direct the manager on to whether or not to hold off on some discretionary expenditures, which of those are priorities until the FEMA funding comes in.
Commissioner Bill?
Yes, I was under the impression the discussion we had, and also with the finance director, was not holding off until FEMA comes through, is until we start getting cash in from our ad valorem taxes, which will be about 3 months. And then we can slowly start doing our stuff, because it may take 4 or 5 months until FEMA pays us. And it would seem to me that doesn't seem reasonable, holding off on lots of stuff. Maybe some things, yes, but like as far as Public Works Director and some of the other things that we need to do, we need to get them done. And if it takes longer for FEMA to reimburse us, it takes us longer. But as long as we're not taking money out of our pocket and we're using cash flow, to me it seems logical to go ahead and do it.
Can I make
That's my thought.
Yeah, can I make an overall comment just to be clear and clarify some of the statements that were made that were false? I've issued my concerns throughout this process. We used to have approximately $1.2 million in reserves, which means none of this discussion I would not be objecting to this budget. We currently have $402,000. Mr. Winklejohn, if you'll confirm what I'm about to say that is accurate and true, please. That it will cost us a lot of our of that 402,000 reserves just to cover the months that we don't get ad valorem in. So my concern is we do that, and it's also still in the middle of hurricane season. So that is my deep concern. We don't have money. We will hopefully after the bank, if we have some issues, we may have some lines of credit that we can get with the bank that will help us with some of this. But once again, at a cost, we had $3 in hauling costs. We're going to be going up to 10 to 15 in hauling costs probably, or something on that, which is the market rate. That would have made what our bill is $1 million now approximately 2.5 times that. Or is that correct? 2 million? It'd be about 2 million. So when I said to go up 2 million in reserves, which I said from the beginning in the budget process, I had a lot of people think that's insane. It's not, because the cost of debris removal is so high when you don't have competition in the state. So that is the reason to get the reserves up. Also, the other benefit of getting the reserves up, I think Commissioner Bilt or Commissioner Ross, I'm not sure which one said, that when you have reserves and you have enough to dip into, you don't worry about it. You dip and when you need to dip, and you put back when you need to put back, and that's the flow. Is there anything I'm saying is incorrect?
No, I can reconfirm both the last two comments, where you're in an unusual fiscal environment because the magic hurricane people took $800,000 out of your pocket. So that's the reality. And it's also September, October, November, December, where the magic revenue doesn't come in. So those real financial situations mean you don't have as much, the 1.2 million, to just keep flowing on a nice straight line and the world's perfect. Those are reality. So with those realities, this budget is as you've directed. It's balanced or reasonably close to balance with these changes. You can approve the millage rate. You can approve these line items. We'll bring back the corrections, and every meeting between the manager and myself, the reports will help you know when to make any other decisions. So it's a go as you go.
Thank you very much.
I just have a quick comment. I mean, I understand some individuals' concerns about the fact that our reserves have been lowered. We're still waiting for FEMA reimbursements and the like. However, we're keeping millage at 9.7. So in essence, it's additional money's coming out of residents' pockets. So I think we owe it to residents to start moving forward on projects like road repairs, things at the park, a public works manager more importantly. What we vote on today, this is just really setting up guidance for us going forward. There's no checks going to be written today after we take this vote. So, but I think we need to go ahead and pass this budget as it is, because in this budget are things that are really a necessity for the residents here. So I mean, I just think it's just very important that, of course, with the changes that Commissioner Ross identified, that we go ahead and accept the budget that we've worked on here, because I think this is what's owed to the residents.
Thank you. With that, is there a motion? I believe there's a motion on the floor. Yes.
I would suggest that the motion maker be that the ordinance and the budget attached to the ordinance are approved, subject to the changes directed to the finance director.
Okay.
I so move.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Okay, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Troopman? Mayor Troopman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tudor?
Yes.
Commissioner Butte?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson-Sadella?
Yes.
Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, because we're having another meeting, I'd like to take a 5-minute recess, no more, because everybody's here waiting. 5-minute recess. Thank you.
We have to adjourn.
Motion